This is Brad at Attitude RC. Now, a while back I picked up one of these 4-in-1 modules, and this is an older one. This actually came as just the board and the antenna. And what you have to do is actually get a case for it or make your own. I just 3D printed this one. And this one has the switch on it and the bind button, and the switch, depending on what position you put it in, selects what model you, or what frequencies and what models you want to bind with. This is an old version, like I said. The new software for OpenTX, you no longer need the switch on the back. It's all done programmatically. So you can just select the models you want, save it as part of your model, and save it as part of your model, and then the next time you go to the model, it'll actually just set the radio to the exact frequency you need. So, not needing the switch, I picked up this new IRangeX, and this is the new module, which is basically the same thing. It's got the same four transmit modules that is in the other one. But with the new software and with the new OpenTX versions, you can just select everything from software, so you no longer need the switches. You see there's no switches, comes with the antenna. There's no switches. Now the problem is, because there's no switches, it's made a little bit less expensive, so it doesn't have all the mounts, or it doesn't have all the risers for programming this and reflashing it. So that's what I'm going to basically show you how to do today, is how to reflash this with the newest software. It takes a couple little tools, a programmer, Arduino programmer, and because basically that's what that is. It's just a small Arduino board in here, just a little ARM processor. You need an Arduino programmer, and you also have to solder in the connections so you can do the programming. And nice enough, it came with all those. So all we have to do is solder those on the board. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to take this apart, show you where they go. We're going to solder those in, and then we're going to actually flash it. Before I do any of that, though, I'm going to plug this into my radio and make sure it works. That's probably the first thing you ought to do, because I believe it does have good software on it from Banggood. So we will see. Okay, now let's see if this works. I'm going to turn on my radio.
Welcome to OpenTX.
And you get a little screen jump. Sorry about that. And we're going to go to, I've just selected this model, which is basically my test model. And we'll go to, let's see, multi, which is what this is. And we're going to set this to for sky. I'm going to go D8 mode, because I have, and you see this is the external module. The actual internal module is off. So external module D8, and I already got a receiver over there to bind with, and just click bind, and it appears to be bound. So it is working. I am now getting a blinking light on my receiver. Everything's good. One thing I don't like about this already, there's no light on the back of this thing at all. So, and I'm not getting, and I don't have it set up for telemetry yet, so I'm not getting any telemetry signal back on this. So it is bound, so the radio is, or the transmitter is working. So good shape there. We are going to move on. Now I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to put in the new software. 2 screws, and this opens up really easy. You can see here, I think you can see all right. You can see here, there's a header up here, and this is your header for communication, for serial communication, which is what we're going to use to program it. But you also have to solder in this header right here. And what this one does is it actually has a jumper for 5 volts, for bootloader, for 3.3 volts, so it knows what mode you're going into. So we're going to have to solder in those 2 sets of headers, and luckily the kit does come with them. So if you ever do need to flash, which I do, they have a new protocol for high-tech in here, which I use for one of my little micros. So I need that protocol, so I'm programming in. You can actually see the back plate they used was still for the old one. They still have the holes in them. They just put a sticker over top of it. But there's also no lights on this board. This particular one has no lights on it. You could feasibly probably solder in the lights. I think the circuit board's probably there for it. No guarantees, but you see there's also a location for the switch and the push button and everything else that was in the other one. So it's basically the exact same board. The only difference is, since you can change everything programmatically, it doesn't need the switches, the lights. The lights was probably just omitted for cost, as well as not soldering in the headers. So I'm going to get those headers soldered in, and then we're going to take it over to the computer and I'm going to show you how to flash it. Now I have the headers soldered in here and here. I checked to make sure there was no jumps between solder points or anything like that. And it was just a real quick solder job. It only took a couple minutes. So it's not too bad. I'm not going to cover soldering it because nobody wants to see that. There's hundreds of how-tos online for soldering. So if you really need to look that up, go ahead. Okay, I'm going to teach you a couple things I learned while I was doing this. Number one, and the big one, it does not get power from the FTDI adapter. So you're going to need an FTDI adapter, and then you're also going to need to power it from the radio. Now the radio is on and it is plugged in. You can see it's through the board right there, even though I have it opened up. Ground to ground. Ground goes up here to ground. Power to power. RX to TX. TX to RX. You got to flip those two for the communication. Then this little jumper right here goes from that first pin down to the second one on the bottom. So that goes from boot to 3.3 volts, and that's what we're going to program it in. Now, the first thing you got to do is you have to download the actual software. And I'm going to put a list in here. Pascal did a great job developing this. He does all the multi-protocol software. And it's a really intricate program, but you don't have to know anything about it. Click clone or download, unzip it. Just download the zip file. You click here, download, zip, and it downloads to your computer. Then you unzip it. Then you have to open your Arduino program. Now, the Arduino program's free, and I'll have links to where to get all this stuff in the notes. So let's get our Arduino opened up. There's a couple things you have to do. You have to set up the right board. So in the list of boards, you actually have to add in that multi 4-in-1 board. And I'm going to have the links once again of how to do that. It's all covered in the multi-protocol. He wrote a really nice how-to, everything step by step on how to do it. And then you have to set up your flash module, which I use this STM32 flash FTDI. And then also auto detect USB or serial. And that's pretty much all you have to do. Then what I always do is come up here and click upload. And what this will do is it'll compile first, and then it'll start the upload process. Now before I do any of that, I actually have to plug in my FTDI to power. Hopefully that stays there. And then I'm going to click upload. And what this will do is it'll upload, and see it compiling right here. You see the bar rolling as it compiles, or maybe you can't see that. There, now. And here it goes. It starts erasing does the erase, and away it goes programming. Now after you program this, even if you had some other models bound to this before you did the flash, you're going to have to rebind your models. It does change enough that it's going to have to rebind. So right now it's going through and writing. I'll slide this down so you can see. You can see all the writes it's processing right now. And when that finishes, all you have to do is pop that boot plug out, unplug all this, pull the module out, put the screws back in, put it back together, and away you go. It's ready to go. There it goes. It's all done. So it's been flashed. Everything seems to have worked. We're going to power it down and put it back together. Okay, the new module is flashed and put back in. And let's
Welcome to OpenTX.
make sure we have new rev level. Here we go to model. Spin up and look at that. Version 1.2.1.25. So that is the new version right there. So looks like the flash was complete. I'm going to check to make sure everything binds, but I'm sure it will. And that's how you flash it. This is Brad at Attitude RC. Thanks a lot for watching.